Hello, Mark. I'm Jake, and my number is 57. The article I'm going to read today is The Great Read, The Nightmare Outcome of Son's Mental Illness by Abby Sewell. Contact the reporter. Cynthia Hernandez was thinking about the missing dog when she woke early that September morning in her family's two-story tract home, tucked away in a residential enclave north of a busy commercial corridor in Chio. The 10-year-old Cocker Spaniel Sandy hadn't been seen since the day before. She went outside to call the dog again without luck. She came back in, took a shower, and began ironing clothes for work. Her husband, Anthony, was in bed browsing the internet on his new tablet. He didn't look up when their 19-year-old son, Aaron, walked into the room. Aaron and his mother had argued about the missing dog, and Anthony wasn't in the mood to talk to his son now. Aaron's behavior had been spinning out of control. He was convinced he was being poisoned by trucks passing on the nearby thoroughfare. Smells and loud noise upset him. He would grow incensed if his mother burned a tortilla in the kitchen or his grandmother had the television volume too high in her room. He punched holes in the room and talked about killing himself. Once his mother said he told her he dreamed that he killed her. It was obvious to Kathleen that her son was a danger. She and Anthony had sought help from California medical, legal, and law enforcement institutions, but they had found only temporary relief and were frustrated by the piecemeal and often impenetrable nature of the state's mental health system. I felt that one day I would come home and find him dead in the house, or he would hurt somebody in the family. Sidney said later. We always felt that. We lived with that every day. On that September day, Anthony walked up to his father as he sat reading in the bedroom and raised a baseball bat above his head. The youngest of the three children, Aaron, was an artistic kid who loved playing guitar and the video game Halo, a lifelike drawing he made for his grandmother of Sandy, the Cocker Spaniel sent out in the collection his family keeps. In middle school, he began using marjuana and later hallucinogens after repeated attempts to control his drug use. His parents decided it was linked to an underlying mental health problem. Physicists began offering assessments of what Aaron's trouble might be and finally settled on a diagnosis: paranoid schizophrenia. Aaron's father was well aware of mental illness. Other family members had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. In the 21st and half year leading up to that September morning, Aaron and his parents had been stuck in a nightmare circle. He had been taken to a physical hospital 8 times on 72 hours, involuntary hospitalization, known by police and mental health workers as a 5150 hold. The 4 holds are reserved for people who pose an immediate danger to themselves or others, or are too mentally ill to care for their own basic needs, that can be extended for 14 more days or sometimes longer. When the patient is found to need more intensive intervention. I felt that one day I would come home and find him dead in the house, or that he would hurt somebody in the family. After a few days, or at most a couple of weeks in the hospital, staff would release Aaron, and he would refuse to follow up on treatment and deteriorate again. In the most extreme cases, a court may order the patient placed under a conservatorship, allowing a family member or other court-appointed person to make medical decisions on their behalf for a year or more. In many cases, that means placing the patient in a locked psychiatric facility and sometimes forcibly administering medication. But how the state law is applied by each of California's 58 counties depends on the money and beds available and the philosophy of county officials, doctors, and judges. What has, in a sense, happened is that every county has sort of crafted the rules that meant their needs the best, says Sherry Krokberg, Vice President of Behavioral Health for the California Hospital ASIN. The result, she said, has been very divergent appreciation of people's civil rights from county to county, city to city, hospital to hospital, and even from physician to physician. Some counties report high rates of 72 hours closed but rarely hold patients longer. Others detain fewer people but keep them longer, and some counties are far more likely than San Bernardino County, where the Hernandez family lives, to initiate the conservatorship process when a patient is referred to them. A few California counties include Los Angeles and Orange, but not San Bernardino, have begun to implement La Luna's law, a measure that permits court to order outpatient treatment of people with severe mental illness. The law's criteria are less strict than those for conservatorships, and it does not require patients to submit to involuntary meditation. Still, some civil liberty or patients' rights advocates have argued that this extended use of force treatment infringes on patients' rights. Cynthia Hernandez with her son, Aaron, on a trip to Big Bear. Aaron, who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, has pleaded not guilty to charge of attempted murder and animal cruelty. Melinda Bird, director of litigation for Disability Rights California, says the real breakdown in the system is that there aren't enough volunteer treatment service and too little efforts made by healthcare providers and county officials to engage people like Aaron in the existing program. No one has shown me an individual who could not be engaged if approached in a way that made sense to them, she said. You don't need to force treatment. It is ultimately counterproductive and incredibly expensive. State Assemblywoman Susan Eggman, Doc Stockton, who wants to expand the use of Luna's law, points out that people whose mental illness goes untreated often and end up incarcerated. We see this as a way of potentially increasing people's freedom, she says. Unable to control Aaron, his parents kicked him out of the house twice after he turned 18 in 2013. During the first stint of homeless, he was arrested on charge of indecent exposure and having an open container of alcohol. The case is pending. During the second, she landed in the emergency room with a skull fracture. He said someone hit him with a skateboard. Shaken by each incident, his parents took him back in, for his behavior made them increasingly anxious. In a video Anthony saved on his cell phone, Aaron, slight and dark-haired, with a pockmarked face, paced back and forth, cursing and covering his ear as he argued with his parents. I wish I could go outside, but I can't, because people are going to be throwing their cars at me and throwing all kinds of fumes in the air, and I can't even breathe in my own neighborhood, Aaron says. Anthony and Cynthia wrote up a document outlining their son's medical history and said they would bring it to Canyon Ridge, a private physiatric hospital in Chino, each time Aaron was detained there. They wanted the doctor to make a referral to the county of San Bernardino, which would then decide whether to file a court potential seeking a mental health conservation for Aaron, but Canyon Ridge never made that referral, Anthony and Kathy said. Anthony and Kathy wrote a document outlining their son's medical history and said they would bring it to Canyon Ridge, a private clinic, each time Aaron was detained there. Representative of a hospital did not respond to repeated requests for comment. Advocates and healthcare providers said there can be disincentive against doctors recommending conservationship and counties pursuing them, including the strict requirements for a patient to qualify, the time it takes a doctor to argue the case in court, and a shortage of long-term beds for pediatric parents. Even in cases in which the provider recommends a conservationship, the county still has to make a decision to pursue the case. Lawmakers address California's deeply fragmented mental health system. In some counties like Los Angeles and Alameda, the Public Guardian's Office files a court petition nearly every time a healthcare provider refuses a patient for a conservatorship, according to data provided in response to inquiries by the Times LA. For instance, has filed petitions on 100% of the approximately 1,200 referrals it receives each year. In San Bernardino County, the average was 34%. Karen Cervantes, a spokeswoman for San Bernardino County Department of Behavioral Health, said investigators petition for conservatorship only when there are no other alternatives available. It is not clear what the county would have decided if the private psychiatric hospital where Aaron was taken during his 5150 commitment had referred him for evaluation. On the day before he released the bed above his father's head, Cynthia said Aaron told her that a demon had appeared in a car's exhaust. She called the county mental health crisis team and tried to put Aaron on the phone with them, but he refused. She said crisis until sent a police officer to the house. By the time he arrived, however, Aaron had calmed down. When the officer asked if he wanted to hurt himself or anyone, he said no. Later that day, with his father at work and his mother out on an errand, Aaron led the family spaniel, Sandy, outside. He lifted a baseball bat and brought it down on the dog, pounding her until she was dead. The next morning, Aaron brought the same bat down on his father twice. Anthony, a stocky 52-year-old, managed to wrest the bat from his 110-pound son. He didn't see the knife in Aaron's other hand until the young man sank it into his temple. "Why are you doing this, son?" Anthony asked. "They're going to take you to jail." "Just die, Dad." Aaron just said. "Just die." Cynthia ran outside to look for help. Aaron found her in a neighbor's yard and slashed and stabbed her too. The emergency room doctors were able to stitch up Anthony and Cynthia's wounds, including one gash on the mother's neck that barely missed an artery. They pulled a fragment of the knife from her scalp. Anthony left, and Cynthia hermits at their home in Chino. Both of them were stabbed by their mentally ill son, Aaron. The scar from the attack on Anthony is visible on his face. Police officers chased down Aaron and subdued him with a taser. He was been jailed ever since on charge of attempted murder and animal cruelty, to which he pleaded not guilty. In late March, a San Bernardino County Superior Court judge decided that he was competent to stay trial. A trial date has not been set. From the beginning, Aaron called his parents from jail every day and sent rambling letters with drawings of heroes and monsters. Anthony goes 2 or 3 times a week to visit him. It took Cynthia longer to work up the nerve to face her son after the attack. Aaron's brother and sister do not speak to him. After a couple of months in jail, Aaron began taking medication. His letters changed, becoming more coherent. His parents says he began to write about feeling remorse. Both parents say that for their son to go to the state hospital for treatment, not to prison. I'm almost relieved that if it happened this way, because now we're going to have something done. Anthony said a week after the attack, a stitch of gas running all the way from his eye to his ear, which is odd to say, and strange to feel this way, but this is what we're left with. In a jailhouse interview with the Times, Aaron choked up when he described killing Sandy. "I thought, I can't believe this. I just took my dog's life that I love so much." He says, "It was the evil within me trying to take over, the so-called anger I could store up inside of me. The same bat could have killed his father," he said. His mind is clearly now. "I'm really thankful that my parents are still here." I wish I could go outside, but I can't because people are going to be throwing their cars at me and throwing all kinds of thumbs.